Well, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining AMGC's webinar series. My name is Kelly Gordeau. I am the Director for Corporate Affairs at AMGC, and this is our 10 Ways to Succeed in Australian Manufacturing series. Today is focused on Way 10, Extend Your Market Reach, and it's the last of our 10 series. So I'll now pass it over to our host, Michael Sharp, National Director for Industry. Over to you, Sharpie, for our 10 of 10 webinar.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Can you believe it's 10 weeks already? I feel like we're just warming up, so I think we might have to do some more of this into the new year. So I'm glad you could all join us today, and we've certainly been growing the momentum, and I know that a lot of you have been downloading the past seminars on the YouTube channel. So continue to do that. Send me the text messages. I'm always happy to help in any way that I can. But I'd like to start by acknowledgement of country, and in the spirit of reconciliation, the AMGC acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. And today I'm coming to you from Bathurst in regional New South Wales on Wiradjuri land. And so glad to be in the mobile Zoom studio, as we call it. But we've got a great range of speakers joining us today, and I'll introduce them very shortly. A bit of housekeeping, just a reminder that today's webinar is being recorded. More than happy to take your questions throughout the next hour, so please submit any questions to the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Remember that you can download the 10 Ways report from the AMGC website, and I know a lot of you have been doing that, so keep up the good work. And the report is based on more than 30 focus groups, roundtable discussions and interviews conducted all over Australia. And I know that many of you met with our Director for Research, Katie O'Connell, on those interviews all around the country. We spoke with 93 individuals from manufacturing companies, industry bodies, government agencies and universities. And these industry bodies represent approximately 370 manufacturers right across Australia. We did a survey of 1,000 members of the Australian public and a survey of 1,000 students and focus groups. And today, being Way 10, what we'll talk about is some of the research findings are that companies that export can transform their growth trajectory and their profitability. And that's always important. Export opportunities are often out of sight and out of mind and can be easily missed. So we'll certainly dig into that a bit today. And also that manufacturers can increase the likelihood of finding the right overseas partner. We know that collaboration is a key driver, so I know we'll touch on some of that today. And now to our panelists. Each of you might just give us a bit of a wave as I introduce you, but first off, it's Matt Bromwich, who's the CEO of IntelliDesign. And Matt has over 15 years experience in the design and manufacture of complex electronic devices across a range of industries, including medical, defense, industrial, and consumer works. He's helped IntelliDesign to become the largest electronics manufacturer in Queensland with a growing portfolio of national and international customers. IntelliDesign is focused on working with its customers in creating innovative, game-changing products by providing a true end-to-end design and manufacturing model with ongoing support for the life of the product. So thanks for joining us, Matt. Issaac Edmiston is the Sales and Marketing Director at Norweld. And I often rave about the work that Issaac's doing with Norweld because they really sell their story. So Issaac joined Norweld Australia in 2007 as an adult apprentice after a career in hospitality. After a short apprenticeship, he moved into management roles before becoming a partner in the business in 2016. He has a love for fishing, camping and travel, which allowed him to connect with his customers based all around the world and has expanded the Norweld brand nationally and internationally. Good on you, Issaac. Thanks for joining us today. Susan Cull is the CEO of ICT International, based at Armidale. And I know that many of you have seen Susan on the Manufacturing Academy, where she shares the insights and journey of ICT over many years. Susan has 36 years experience in development and management of ICT International, a role she's shared with her husband, Dr. Peter Cull. Combined, they have developed ICT International into a world-class export-focused technology company which designs, manufactures and deploys bespoke integrated wireless monitoring solutions for commercial agriculture and for scientific research in the natural and built environment. In 2006, ICT International commenced an R&D program, and the company dedicated 16 to 20% of its annual turnover to development of various products. This has produced a family of unique digital instruments for monitoring of plant, soil, and environmental parameters. These are now exported to over 51 countries each and every year from their regional base in Armidale. So glad you could join us, Susan. Welcome. And Peter Carl, with ICT International also, in the early 1980s, Peter, having completed his PhD in irrigation monitoring, sought to expand his research and bring together scientific theories and their practical applications, especially in soil and plant sciences. For Peter, water was always the key, and he believed that developing precision instruments to accurately measure, monitor, and understand water would make a significant difference to some of the major challenges in food production and land use. And he's certainly gone on to do that, and I'm so glad you could join us today, Peter. Thanks. Really happy to have my colleague Mark Peters, who I know many of you deal with the AMGC projects and so much more. Mark is the State Director for AMGC in Queensland and the Northern Territory, and he's also our National Director for Projects. Mark joined AMGC in 2017 and previously worked as a business advisor for the Entrepreneurs Program. He's worked with hundreds of firms covering diverse industries such as manufacturing, resources, agriculture, medical and transport. And he's helped these firms to successfully focus on their sales model, including distribution channels and new business development. So plenty we're going to talk about today, Mark, and let's get right into it, hey? One of the things I thought I might start with is with Norworld, with all the great work you're doing with selling your store and using technology to get the message out. And I know it's much more than just Instagram, Isaac, but that's been a great platform for really expanding the potential of Norworld. Can you share a bit of the journey of how that came about?
Yeah, so most of it started quite small, very small following. It was actually a personal Instagram page I had, and then I converted it to like the Norworld Australia page. Mm-hmm. And as we did more and more vehicle fit outs with the trays and the canopies, we'd put the photos up, share it on Facebook, share it on Instagram. And then Instagram's quite powerful in that people use the hashtags and they'll search, so the algorithms allow people on the other side of the world to see what we're doing without actually knowing who we are, what we did. So 2016, I popped up on a American company's feed essentially, and we weren't huge on Instagram. I think we had about 5,000, maybe 8,000 followers. But we'd had, the product presented well. It was something fresh and new for the American market, and these guys saw the potential in that, and they saw that there was definitely a market for what we did in their local area. So, they reached out via the website. We have contact forms. We've got automatic quote process. So it's a whole process. You see it there, but you get pushed through to the website, which is an important part of capturing your leads. So those guys got in touch, and then you have the conversations. We used to use Skype a fair bit back then before Zoom, so everything was done via Skype. And when everyone asked, "How did you hear about these guys?" I said, "Well, they found me, Instagram." And at the time, it wasn't something we'd planned on doing. Moving into an international market was an organic thing. We were more focused on just doing what we did locally. We'd had people inquire about exporting the product, but it just seemed at the time in 2016, it seemed like such a hard task. So it was really by necessity that I had to learn how to become an exporter. But, social media was the gateway for us because our product, it's the sort of thing you show off to your friends.
So just to expand on that a little bit, Isaac, we're talking about ute trays that you manufacture for the likes of Toyota Land Cruisers and other vehicles. So the export to the US is some of the bigger utes that you see in the States with the Dodge Rams and others. So certainly you have to adapt some of the work you're doing, but it's interesting that you've got that whole digital process coming through from when they see the photo. And I think it's interesting too. I think in the early days, you were putting up your own photographs, but now you've got customers from around the world sending in their own photos for your Instagram feed. That really is buy-in, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, the customers love showing off our product, and it's different for every industry, every manufacturer. It's a different thing, but for our stuff, it presents very well in photos. I've got world famous photographers using our stuff. and then sending us the images, and we're like, wow, this is amazing. Like the best image we got was one of a Norwell train canopy and the old mates in Africa with an elephant. So that was something I'd never thought I'd see. Grand Canyon, Norwell, built in Cairns since 1971, and we've got our trays and canopies in the Grand Canyon, which that for me was a pivotal moment where like, yep, this is real. We're actually a big time, you know, we're a big deal now. We're exporting to 6 continents. Like I've got everything, every continent except Antarctica, we've got product now. So
well, there's something to work on.
Yeah. Not sure how I'm going to get that part over the line, but it's maybe.
I look forward to that photograph for sure. This might be an opportunity to bring up our first poll question, if we can do that, which is looking at some of the research that we found in the 10 Ways report and looking at the opportunities to become an exporter. But the question that we'll ask all of you out there is, what percentage of manufacturers account for the majority of the industry's total export value? So we know that we have 48,000 manufacturing companies across Australia. What percentage of them do you think contribute to export? Go ahead and punch in your answer there, and then we'll dig in a bit deeper, because all these people that are joining us today are exporting, which is, we know there's a greater opportunity for all to do. And I must say, even looking at those numbers, they're all pretty low, aren't they?
Lower than I thought. But...
Yeah, well, to me, that shows that we've got a much bigger opportunity. So how are we looking there for the answer? I know the answer because I've been reading the research. So the majority of you think that it's only 5%. And unfortunately, you would be right. So only 5% of Australia's 48,000 manufacturing companies are involved in the export opportunity. So that just shows me that we've got a great and growing opportunity to really promote. So thanks for that. But on that side of things, Peter, you've been traveling for many years all around the world to build ICT International and the technology that goes with it. Places like remote regions of China and other places. But the technology you must have seen change over the time, from everything from mobile phones to, using Google Analytics today, I guess. Can you share a bit of that?
Well, it has. We used to send newsletters out 6,000 at a time when we started in Australia, and we'd have 4 people putting stamps on them.
Wow.
That was in the early 80s. Then along in the early 90s came internet, and that's grown in sophistication. And we have a full-time desktop publishing person now and a half-time marketing person. Mm-hmm. And we study the results from all our mail outs with the Google Analytics. And we know which countries to target. And we've just recently brought a catalogue out of 94 pages of our instruments. And we have already translated that into 5 languages and heading towards 12. We do that with the dealers in each country, and they have to buy in with you in that regard, because they do the translating. They they've read the thing. And so, yeah, the internet is a critical part of it. And in conjunction, perhaps a little in contrast to Norwell, word of mouth plays a big part too, in that our instruments are quite technical, and they're published in high-level scientific journals, and they're referred to from scientist to scientist at conferences, and these scientists read the papers, and then they see our instruments in the materials and methods. And so then they become accepted as the norm. Mm. So increasingly the customers come to you because they want highly credible instruments, because they themselves want to do highly credible research. And simply, since we're chatting here, a good example for us is the world's tallest trees. Our instruments have been used to monitor the health and the water use of the 14 tallest trees in the world, for example. And that's been on our webpage, and it certainly attracted a lot of attention as well.
So it is important to share the story and get that out to the public. As you said earlier, with newsletters, and that's a lot of stamps to lick. But yes. now with Google Analytics, you can actually measure and monitor the impact of your message getting out to a global audience.
Yeah, we send out we have about 14 to 16,000 people that are highly qualified on our database. And then we have them segmented by language, and we email our newsletters out by language to those databases. And then we see the response, and we even check every link for the response, so we know what works and what doesn't work, and we get, you know, response is really very good.
No, that's good. And on that front, Susan, I know you've been doing a lot with YouTube and promoting. You know, we had the launch of the new expanded facilities at Armidale. You had some great people attending there, including the Chief Scientist of New South Wales. But you've been able to put that footage up on YouTube so that people can see the work that you're doing and the instruments that you're manufacturing. When Peter talks about the data collection and developing the website and that sort of things, what's your experience around you know, sharing that journey and getting that message out?
Yeah, look, I think that sharing the journey is the important, that's the most important thing, because people, when you share that journey, you're sharing the experience to say, look, this is, being an exporter is not supposed to be like rocket science. It's not. It's something that everybody can do. And in our case, what we did is we took our collective IP, which was based on soil science and plant science, and we married that up with smart microprocessor-driven technology, and went from being a net importer of finished scientific product that our customers were telling us was not cutting the grade. It wasn't giving them the research results that they wanted. And we said, right, we can do this and we can do it better than anybody else. And so in 2006, as you said, Michael, we started an R&D program. It was dedicated for 10 years, 15 to 20% of your annual turnover. And when you say that to people, they think it's madness. And I actually had the former chief scientist, Professor Ian Chubb, in our building a couple of years before we did the refit. And he said, I can't believe you've done this in 10 years. And so selling that story, it just makes people go, well, we've been through it, you can go through it. And I have the analogy of, if you've got some IP out there, you've got a product or a service, put a bow on it and package it and get it out the door.
Yep. And you've done that. I mean, the packaging that ICT International uses is unique to your business. There's been some work into the design of the packaging, which I'm familiar with. Could you share a bit about that and how that came to be, and the impact of having the right packaging for your products?
Yeah, well, look, I really love design. I don't care what it is, but I love design. And one of my, I took inspiration from Chanel, and that's exactly what I call the boxes. They're beautiful organic cardboard boxes. Every instrument goes in the box, and our logo is on the front of the box. So the scientists love them because they've got their serial number on, and they look beautiful. And that's all our marketing is based on that. I took that concept of using beautiful black graphics against a neutral cardboard background,
Mm-hmm.
and all our business cards, all our manuals that go with instruments, that's all the branding. And so I think I love to see companies that have beautiful logos and they have design, they've thought about their design, because it really is, you know, that's what we do as humans. We pick things up and we look at them, and if ugly doesn't cut it, as far as I'm concerned. It's got to be beautifully designed. And that was my inspiration, the Chanel, House of Chanel.
And so when you're exporting around the world like you are to so many different countries, that packaging becomes important, not just as an advertisement, but also, you know, the security of the instrument that you're delivering, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've taken, because our instruments actually go everywhere. They go to the tundra forest. I had one of our guys go up there and live for a week inside electric fence so he didn't get eaten by bears, with the sign to install these sap flow meters in the tundra forest.
Wow.
And you've got, but I think a point here is that your packaging, not just for the aesthetics of it, but it's got to be bulletproof. So you have triple baffled export boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Instruments go in their own box, and you don't, you know, the security and the bulletproofness of how well and truly thought about. So you don't bring heartache upon yourself, much less your poor dispatch person.
Yep. No, that's good stuff. Now, I've got the 10 Ways report here with me, and some of you may have that open on your screen in front of you, but one of the points here is about using technology to facilitate strategic expansion and exports. And Matt, we've heard our other speakers here talk about elephants standing beside their Norwell ute trays in Africa. We've heard about bears up in the tundra forest. Peter's talked about all of his experience leading to where ICT International finds itself now, using things like Google Analytics. But for you, we were talking earlier about using Zoom as a tool. So adopting technology to look at these export opportunities. Can you share your experience in recent months with Zoom?
Yeah, sure. And I'm sure a lot of the people on the call have had similar experiences. But certainly something that we've made a really conscious effort to take advantage of with COVID is the ability to connect faster and more directly with senior people at international customers. So we've been offering a lot of factory tours. So we have electronics design and manufacturing in the one building here, and it's been a very successful way of bringing in much earlier than we otherwise would have been able to the real decision makers, particularly for international customers and interstate customers for that matter, until I guess until the 1st of December, I think it is.
Sure.
So we've been sort of starting in the way that we normally do, bringing these customers into our conference room and then saying, hey, let's go for a walk. Very deliberately keeping it quite intimate and you know, low tech, not high production value, but just sort of saying, come for a walk with us around the building, as we would if they were here with us. And so we start at the front door and we give them a full tour. And there's a lot of Q&A as we go through that process.
So you're literally walking through the factory with the iPhone.
Yeah, that's right. iPhone and you know, some headphones, and you're able to just interact as you sort of normally would on a factory tour. It might be half a dozen people, or it could be a few tens if sort of word gets around. And I guess that's the benefit that we're seeing. It's almost an unexpected benefit that, you know, you're able to actually reach much more broadly into a potential customer much more quickly. Usually it might take a few visits, then someone's got to make an international trip, but those barriers have sort of been, you know, pushed down.
Well, that's one of the points here. It says about international travel and facilitating networking, but you've really accelerated that process by using the technology. In this case, Zoom, but we know others are using Teams and things like that. But I guess this really is a step change. So never waste a crisis, and you're on the front foot, and I can see the benefits for that. And I'm sure some of our other listeners would take on that example. Could you give us a couple of examples around some of the latest products that you are designing?
Yeah, so our business is really two parts. We have around 30 designers and engineers, and they'll work on all sorts of different things. One of the strategies we've got is to make sure that we're very diverse in the products that we're designing. So we have a lot of mining on vehicle products related to collision avoidance systems. We're designing at the moment an MRI machine in partnership with the University of Queensland. There's SCADA systems for electricity, you know, substations, and you know, various sensors for construction, aluminium smelting. So it's a really diverse mix. And then on the production side, more recently we've been making a move into defence manufacturing. So, you know, most people will be aware there's some pretty significant defence projects and government investment. Which got
the largest defence budget in our nation's history right now. So there's certainly never been an opportunity like it.
That's right. And you know, the longer term advantage there, I think, is the defence primes are really being encouraged not only to set up local supply chains, but to bring those local suppliers into their global supply chains. So I think this government investment and the focus on Australian industry content is really going to have a pretty positive impact, I think, on high technology and really high quality manufacturing in Australia, and will, you know, connect into international defence supply chains as well.
Yeah. And Mark, I'm really glad you could join us for this one, because you've got some great experience around helping people to set up for export opportunities. What are the first steps that people can take, and, you know, what organisations should potential exporters consult with around these opportunities? Can you share a bit of, you know, maybe some examples?
Yeah, probably the being a resident in Queensland. I'm not a Queenslander. I still barrack for the Blues, but being a resident in Queensland at the moment, I've found that TIQ has been invaluable to a lot of our clients in getting into export markets. They've done a great job. And second to that, of course, you've got Austrade. They can give you some help in getting into export markets as well. Export Council of Australia, they've got a lot of material to learn from this side, how to get over to the other side, how to get into export markets. There's a series of export hubs that have been set up in the last 12 months with the federal government. I'll just reel off some of those. In round 2, you had Fruit Growers Association of Tasmania, Defence Training Centre, Subsea Energy Australia, Life Sciences Queensland, Auspine Limited, Shoalhaven City Council, Australian Meat Industry Council, Food South Australia Incorporated. What else we got here? Resource Industry Network Co-op, Toowoomba and Surat Basin Enterprise, Regional Development Australia at Arana, Food and Fibre at Gippsland, Australian Wagyu Association and the Agribusiness Regional Development Association Incorporated. Now, they're all listed on the government website under export hubs. So if you want to join a hub somewhere near you, I suggest you have a look at that list and maybe connect up with one of those people. Also, help you can get the Entrepreneurs Program, which is something I used to be involved in as a business advisor. Those guys and girls have got tremendous experience in helping companies to export and giving them advice on export. So sign up to, well, have a look at the Entrepreneurs Program, get what they call a business evaluation, and they can give you a lot of help in doing so. And the other thing that I would recommend is you network. Go along to Export Awards and see what people have done. See what people have done, yeah. And network with the people there, and just go to a few. After a while, you'll probably run into Paul Cooper, who's one of the judges there, our chairman. But yeah, you're just getting involved in that industry or that sort of network of people who are very export oriented, and they're the sort of organisations I'd recommend.
It's great advice, and I do agree with those various events, because networking and as the report here says about looking for chance events, recognising and maximising opportunities for chance events and getting out there and sharing your story. And Peter, I want to talk to you a bit about that, because you're not new to networking, and the most recent one, I guess, is with the Australia-India Business Council. You're going to be talking at a forum online tomorrow about that. So here's a chance event that's come along. You've been able to meet this new cohort. And I guess you'll be talking about your instruments and what ICT International can offer to the Indian market. Can you tell us a bit more about how you see getting out there and making these opportunities for a chance event that can then help grow your business?
Yeah, well, first of all, I owe Michael a favour for introducing us, because one of the disadvantages of living in a region, of course, you don't get to the Australia-India Business Council meeting or the equivalent things at all. So networking, you have to take a very different approach. In this case, the people could see what we had to offer. They asked us to speak right away. And this was only several weeks ago, so I prepared about a 4-slide presentation for 10 minutes. Indian market's one we've been trying to get involved with. It's quite a difficult market, quite different to the Chinese market, very different in fact. And so along comes this opportunity. I prepared the slides, and I'm simply going to go for it and give the best presentation I can. I've put a lot of time and effort into it already. I've prepared it, and I'm going to show the technology, and then I'm going to straight out ask in the last slide for businesses to come forward that want to work with us or partner with us or see opportunity to create product for the Indian market from the resource we have and the technology we have. And I'll be very surprised, because there'll be at least 250 qualified Indian businesses at the presentation, I know. They've been running a series of these, a little like this one we're having here on agribusiness. This is the third of a fourth in the series of agribusiness for the Australia Business, India Business Chamber. So that's it.
I think that's important, Peter, to elaborate a bit on that. Is the opportunity is there now and it's presented itself, but now you're doing all the work you can to leverage that opportunity by sharing your latest technologies, you're putting a plan together of what story you're going to tell that audience, because you've got this chance opportunity now and you want to make the most of it.
Michael, I'll even practice the presentation beforehand. No, I'm true. If I know exactly what I'm going to say in the 10 minutes.
Yes.
And because this is how many flights to India and how many travel things would you have to do? This 10 minutes is worth 10 flights to India, and more or less if I get a response to this, I'll continue pursuing the Indian market. If I can't, I'll simply cross it off on the list and spend more time in another market for various information, because I know the information I've gathered and I'm going to give it the best shot. And if I can't crack the Indian market this time, well, you write it off and you move on.
Yeah.
And you just wait and watch, and it might be like Turkey came to us the other day. Turkey's got a massive language problem for us as Australians, but finally we've found a dealer who's interested in our product, who can speak English, and so now that market opens.
And I'm just thinking what Matt said earlier, yes, about taking the Zoom, taking the mobile phone through the workshop would be a good experience for you too, mate. Maybe not for tomorrow's one, but the ability now with Zoom to be able to show people the manufacturing process is new and novel. So I'll certainly be encouraging more and more people to look at doing things like that. We've got some questions coming through, which is great. So please feel free to send questions. The first one I'm going to put to you, Isaac. This person's asking, how do you get started networking in overseas markets? What's been your experience as far as building that cohort that you've got going with Norweld now?
So most of, for me, I went to, once we knew we were sending a product to that market, went to the effort of flying in and fitting it myself personally.
Okay.
And then training the guys. Okay, here's the tool of the product. We're going to fit one. And then we drove 14 hours from Philadelphia down to North Carolina for a big expo. And then that's what opened it up for us. So at the moment, feet on the ground is not something we can do, but at that time. So then every year for 4 years in a row, I've gone back to America, continued talking to people, met more people, made more friendships. And a lot of these, and the market we're in America, it's everyone knows everyone, and it's quite small, but there's a lot of money inside that area, in that market. So huge scope, but everyone knows everyone. So you got to sort of be there a couple of times and, oh yeah, these guys are back. And then, I've got guys, East Coast, West Coast businesses on the, southern states, Northeast, everywhere. So we've sort of, and that's only because I've feet on the ground, you go there. You can't do that at the moment, but we've sort of said, well, how do we show what we can do? So we use social media, a bit more videos, like we're talking about zooming through a workshop. I went one level above that. I bought a 3D camera out of the States called the Matterport.
Okay.
I've done a full factory tour through my workshop, from processing all the way through to assembly, fit up, final fit up, wiring, everything. And then a customer can walk through, once they've got our quote, international customer, and look at every part of our process in the manufacturing side of it. And they can see what we do. So rather than showing a workshop tour, it's something that they can interact with themselves in the 3D. So, but for networking, social media, well,
I think it must have been pretty exciting when the first customers started sending through their own photographs.
Yeah, once I got photos back from in 17, we launched canopies. Before we did trays, and then we went canopies in 17. So it was in 17 that we got the Grand Canyon photos of stuff in the Grand Canyon, and then that's what we put that out there, and there was a massive thing. It was huge for us as a business, and that's what made it real. This is happening. So, but I still continue. I talk to people. We interact with our customers on our platforms as much as possible, without becoming you don't want it to rule your life. It needs to be something that you do, but you're not spending your whole life looking at your phone, getting contact, in touch with people. You still got a business to run. So
yeah, sure.
Customers love that engagement. They love seeing us talk back. They love knowing that it's one of the team talking to them, and then they send the photos, and then I've had American customers buy off me 2 or 3 times now inside 4 years. So bought once, come back, and they come back again. So one customer's come back 3 times, and other guys come back twice. So I got 2 guys that have come back twice. So
And I imagine if they're that proud enough to take a photo of their vehicle and send it to you, they're proud enough to show their mates as well, right?
Yeah, and it's very much the same in Australia. A lot of customers, like, they didn't realise what they signed up for when they bought a Norwell. They get, you know, questions everywhere they go. It's the same if you're in a country where they're not very popular as a concept, like a ute tray. It isn't popular in America. So something that looks good and is totally unique gets it's a big talking point for a lot of people. So like customers network for us as much as ourselves. We've got, you know, we're going to pretty much fit 1,000 trays this year and 450 canopies. So that's effectively 1,400 customers that are going to become, you know, advocates for Norwell. They'll network for us, and we've ensured that, you know, these customers, they do that with pride because we've worked so hard to develop a product, deliver the product, and then give exceptional service. So
yeah,
it all ties together. You got to be good on the front face, the sales process, the quoting, the delivery, the after sales, all that, you know, the communication is that's what's helped us get to where we are.
I think it's great, Isaac. And, you know, we're talking today with AMGC members who are in regional Australia, who have, you know, started from scratch to get export opportunities up and going. And it's great to have all of you here today talking about your experiences. Another question here, and I might throw this one to you, Matt, is what is the benefit of exporting to one country first and then branching out from there versus exporting to multiple markets all at once? Do you have some stories to tell about that? Because I think Peter would as well.
Yeah, sure. No, it's a good question, and I suspect that our answer may be different to some of the others on the panel. A customer for us is, you know, we have tens of customers, so we're dealing business to business, and they tend to be quite large customers. So there's a lot of energy that goes into establishing a new relationship with a customer. So we tend to be very targeted, and I think the answer to this question really comes down to you know, the bandwidth and the energy that you've got to be able to do it. You want to make sure that you end up with you know, you'd rather have one successful customer for us than to be working on 5 across 5 markets and get none. So I think for us, it's about making sure that we're really providing you know, those new opportunities a lot of attention, and we're really working them through. But there's always a lot on the boil as well. So I think it's you know, do as much as you can with the energy and the bandwidth that you've got.
Now, being a design house and manufacturing as well, I mean, the design must play a key part. So leveraging this technology where customers can tap into you from anywhere around the world must be playing a more and more important role. You've described walking through the factory with the iPhone and using Zoom, but the ability to adjust designs to customer demand must be a real new experience.
Yeah, well, design probably less so, but what's really interesting with design is it often requires a lot of back and forth with customers, and so time zones start to play a part. And so depending on where those customers are, you can potentially take advantage of those time zone differences. So if we're working with customers in the Europe or the UK, for example, you know, we can get 16-hour work days with them because we can do some work during the day, have a handover, you know, in late afternoon our time, early morning their time, and then they can sort of do the next stage. So there has been some really good customer relationships that have worked better than if they were in the same time zone, because we get to sort of work all hours of the day. Not always possible depending on the country that you're dealing with, but yeah, that's certainly a benefit that we have being, you know, in Australia, is that we can offer that.
No, that's great.
COVID has certainly put a more even playing field, I think, out there, because, you know, if you're in the UK now, there's no difference working really with an Australian company compared to someone who's a couple of cities away. So.
Oh yeah, and you know, when you think there's only 5% of our manufacturers doing the export side, there's such a much larger opportunity, and now more so than ever. So that's a great example, because with the free trade agreements coming up around the world that Australia's being involved with, I think the opportunity is only going to get stronger. So that's a very good point. But to you, Peter, if someone was starting in looking to export today, would you recommend that they started with one country, or, you know, it's better than a scattergun approach, I guess? What would be your experience as far as that sort of thing's concerned?
I'd say, first of all, make sure your product is working perfectly without any bugs or problems in Australia first.
Okay.
Don't hallucinate that it'll sell overseas and you won't have dramas if you're still having dramas in Australia. So make sure it works, and it works well in your local home territory.
Mm-hmm.
Norwell is a very good example of that. And then I'd say pick one or two countries, because there are huge cultural differences, more than you can imagine. When we first started with China, we found it was easier to put pictures on the packing list, because always they said there was something missing. But if you put pictures on the packing list, it suddenly wasn't missing. They could find it in the box, and because they didn't know what they were looking for. So you overcome the cultural differences, the box differences, the freight forwarder differences, currency, all of those things. And once you understand one culture, then you can move on more quickly to build up other countries after realizing that not everyone's the same as in Australia.
Yeah. Well, this is real world experience, everyone. So again, what a great panel we've got here today. But if I expand on that just a little bit, Peter, I know in the conversations we've had over many months around exporting and growing the business, you've never been focused on Australia per se. You've always looked at that export opportunity from day one. You don't differentiate between Australia and any other country, do you, in that way?
No, we don't. Having said you've got to prove your product somewhere, we prove it in Australia, obviously, because that's home ground. But you never develop it with Australia in mind. The size of the Australian market for us is the same size as Southern California. So if you think you're going to make a living in Southern California, you've got to be nuts. So you're going for the globe from day one with everything you do. And if you happen to sell it in Australia, good luck. But you just go where the opportunities are, and they're everywhere. And once you understand the cultural differences, that's fine. It's a global market, and Australia is simply home-based to develop the product.
And Susan, I've got a question here from Peter Taylor, who says, how important is having a local in-country agent acting on your behalf? How critical is that for the success of export endeavours? And you've got agents around the world?
Yes, we do have agents around the world. So you're talking about agents of our products?
Yeah. How important is that?
It's very important to have an agent in the country that you're going to be exporting to.
Okay.
Peter's talked about China, where we had a personal relationship first, and then that's developed into he's our key person for China. We had the same experience in South America. We had someone come to us, actually came all the way from South America to Narrabri to be trained in a particular technology back in the day, and we developed him into our master agent for South America. When you've got boots on the ground, any problems that you have can be sorted out. So I think it is very important that you either by experience and personal relationships or the hard yards you go through, that it's not easy finding or choosing an agent. But when you find someone that you can work with and that has the same philosophy about how you want the customer to be, how you want the customer to be treated, because the customer is number one.
Yes.
So there is, we support our customers 365 days a year, if that's what it takes, particularly when they're up a gum tree somewhere trying to do research.
Or being chased by a bear.
Or being chased by a bear.
That's a great experience. And Mark, if I go to you around, one of the other points in the 10 Ways report is around export finance and guidance around where government can offer assistance. What's your experience around with Austrade and export development grants and other things like that? What should people look to?
Well, EMDG has been a mainstay for companies exporting for many years now. They've scaled it back a little bit, but it's still a great, not such an incentive, but it's a great bank of money you can depend on. It means that it offsets the cost of going over to America or to any country. Your travel, your marketing, attending trade shows, etc. You can claim a large part of that back from the government as such, and that helps finance that initial surge of getting over there into those markets. Export Finance Australia, of course, they will finance companies that have got orders overseas. They'll even supply your suppliers. They'll finance the suppliers you've got if you've got a big export contract. They are a little bit more expensive than banks, about 2 percentage points more, but it's a short-term sort of access that gives you that ability to finance a large export order, etc. And once you've got that flowing, hopefully your cash flow will continue to support that.
And so people can go to the business.gov.au website. They can also go to the AMGC website, but I know you're happy for people to reach out to you, Mark, and look for any guidance that you might be able to share. And I know you're doing that on a regular basis. So feel free for anyone to reach out to us at AMGC, and we're happy to make those introductions. And you'll also, of course, find so much information on our website and see what other companies that are doing things just like you, but leveraging that export opportunity to grow their business. So take a look. We've got some more questions here. So Fisher says, more choice and competition in international markets will likely call for R&D and more innovation. What can universities do to both understand the international market and help with Australian industries? And are there networking groups or events at universities that can help with this? And Isaac, I know in Cairns, there's the manufacturing hub there that have regular events where I've been able to attend. That's a good thing. But it must be important to get out and share your experience with others, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. Like I have a pretty good relationship with both the Entrepreneurs Program and the Manufacturing Hub in Cairns. Like we work closely with the local manufacturing hub to get a grant for about 180,000 to buy a router. Mm-hmm. So we invested about another 150 because we redid some work on that part of the factory, and we just finished a massive expansion. So it was the next logical step. So they helped us with that, and there's a lot of support from that team locally because we're such a poster child for Cairns and what we do. There's like, we try and help as many people. We get other businesses in here and show them through what we do. So, and I've done some stuff out at the uni with technology like 3D printing and that sort of stuff. Like it doesn't have full application for us, but you got to sort of, you're better off getting involved and joining the seminars and going on the webinars and just grabbing snippets of information, and then you might find something that triggers a thought. Then, okay, yep, I can connect with that person from that hub or that university, and then they can help me with the next phase. Or, if you're not getting R&D grants, if you're not using the R&D stuff every time you're doing your tax at the end of the year, like all that stuff has to be done. And the universities locally, we don't have much to do, but I have had some work, done some work with Wollongong University because they do a lot of technology stuff with what the manufacturing and stuff, and like single one-piece flow and all lean manufacturing. So we've gone through a lot of exercises with universities and other departments. So yeah, it's different for every business, but it's essential. I think you just got to put your feelers out and network with as many as possible, and then select a few that you think are key or core for your business and fit for your business.
And that really is then validating those chance events. By getting out there, you're meeting new people, people that can offer new guidance or advice and things maybe that you haven't thought of before. And certainly we're trying to break down more and more those barriers between university researchers and industry. And so it's always great for me whenever I can take a university researcher out onto the factory floor. The conversations that happen are sometimes groundbreaking. And so the opportunities are vast. I think it's more and more opportunity to get out there and share your story. I think you'll reap the benefits. Another question we have here, and Peter, I'm going to ask you this because you've had a lot of experience in the China market. And the question is, how will the current deterioration in the relationship between China and Australia impact on the attractiveness of the Chinese market? And I guess one of the points might be around the diversity of international markets and not just relying on one country. But what do you think about the current situation, and what's the plans?
Yeah, one more thing I'll add to what Isaac said. We've had a University of Technology in Sydney Zoom in lectures to our business. We had all the people from manufacturing in, and they've been zooming in about supercapacitors or zooming in about wireless behaviour of LoRaWAN. And we've literally, the business has been getting lectures from the university people. So that's been a win for this Zoom and this modern environment. Mm. But as for China, I think a lot about that. Honestly, we have strong relationships, and I just guess we keep our heads low and we get on with business, to be very honest. And
Yep.
and our friend in China, the Chinese don't talk much about politics. They're not interested. They're humans like us, and they just want to get on and do their day's work, be happy, and have a better opportunity for their children. So you just keep on working, and we're keeping on working with them. And honestly, whatever's going on at the moment, don't ask me in that regard. They're just happy, and we're working away. So, and nothing changes.
But over many years, though, Peter, I know that ICT International, you have diversified your markets.
Oh yeah,
and to be with over 50 countries now, that's a lot of diversity. So
Yeah.
I guess that takes out some of the risk.
Yeah, it takes out a lot of the risk. Like I can tell you, we've had nearly no inquiries from the US for about the last 2 or 3 months. Is that a surprise? And Germany's at a low at the moment as well, but China's alive and well, and so on and so forth. So when one's up, one's down, and that's not only COVID, it can be funding cycles, changes of presidents, 5-year cycles for those countries and their interest or belief in global warming or any of those topics. Global warming drives a lot of our sales, and it's alive and well, despite what our politicians might say. And so each country has all those things that play all the time. So if you're dealing with enough of them, there's always plenty going on somewhere, sometime. So yeah, and Germany's one of our bigger countries, US, China, they're probably our 3 biggest areas, and Brazil's another. And Brazil's alive and well at the moment. They may have COVID, but there's plenty of orders coming from Brazil.
So some great experiences here around extending your market reach in your manufacturing business today. So I know some of you will be listening to this on a Saturday morning, so I hope you're busily taking notes, and feel free to rewind a little bit and you can capture those notes again. But I do like to ask some of our panelists around a good book they might like to share with us, or perhaps a podcast that they listen to. And Matt, I might ask you first about any good books that you could recommend to people out there that can share some of this experience.
Yeah, sure. We've been going through a lean journey for the last couple of years, and one of the books which I think hits pretty hard is one called The Lean Turnaround. It's by a guy called Art Byrne, who was one of the people involved in lean before it was called lean. It gets you thinking. It has a few counterintuitive points, but it's a good way to kick off that kind of transformation, particularly I think if you're in a manufacturing related business.
Oh, very good. And Susan, other than people listening to you on the Manufacturing Academy, is there a go-to book or a podcast or something that you would like to recommend?
Yes, Michael. Start with Why by Simon Sinek. I read that book, and it crystallizes why are you in business, and how do you inspire people, and how do you innovate, and the why of your business. And after I read that book, I was able to workshop with a few other people in the business and change our byline of our business, which was very bland, that really didn't say anything about what we did. And now we have the byline enabling better global research outcomes in soil, plant and environmental monitoring. And that was a vast improvement on what it was previously. And it was all down to the very, the common sense and inspiring stories that Simon outlines in the book.
Oh, very good. We'll put these notes on the YouTube channel. And Isaac, is there a go-to for you?
Essentialism by Greg McEwen. Yeah, that's probably the book I've read a few times, and it just helps remove like the clutter as you get busier. It's about how to discern, for me, what's important, what needs to be done. And then it's taught me a few techniques, like even with my email, everyone gets a bounce back. And that's a way for me to filter out. If someone really needs to talk to me, they'll get in touch with me another way through the office. As you get busier, as you get bigger, your attention shifts. So for me, that book polarized a lot of things and helped me double down and use my time better.
Oh, good stuff. Well, that's some great experience there. Thanks for sharing. And Peter, I'm sure you've got some great reading material you'd like to share. And I know, oh, here we go. Who Moved My Cheese? Dr. Spencer Johnson. Okay. Tell us a bit more. Tell us a bit more what you found in that book. That's been helpful.
It's small. It's got big words. It's got plenty of diagrams, and it's easy to read. But it basically tells you to, keep on looking, keep turning the stones, never be satisfied with where you are. There's always more opportunity, and keep looking for it.
Oh, very good. Thanks, Peter. And Mark, anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, it's one that my son sort of mentioned to me the other day when I found out he was a bit of a little capitalist playing the stock market. And he's reading a book called 9 Lives of Work by Buckingham. And he said that it's his first foray into learning all about big business. He didn't follow his dad into business. He became a minister of God instead. But now he's got a bit of spare time, and he's looking at how industry works. And he said it's got some rather interesting stories about what not to do in business.
Oh, very good. Well, there's some great feedback there for everyone to get down to your local bookshop and download that text, because you can see that all these people are involved with growing their business and growing global export opportunities right across the board from such a wide range of products. And so I want to thank you all for sharing that today. We've got some slides that we'll pull up, and this is what we talked about today, was how to strategize and expand export products, looking to leverage those global opportunities. So setting export-specific goals, linking into global supply chains, and making it a priority to build relationships. We certainly heard everyone talk about those important relationships to build. Recognising and maximising opportunities for chance events. So get out there and talk, meet people. You never know what might come of it. Using technology to facilitate strategic expansion and exports. And just like walking through your workshop with a mobile phone and using Zoom, who would have thought? But 2020, it's an amazing year. Identifying and reaching untapped markets and segments, thinking outside the box of how you can potentially access new types of markets, and financial guidance and finance for export opportunities through things like the export development grants and others. So certainly some great work there. If you haven't joined AMGC yet, I certainly encourage you to get on board. It's completely free to join as a member. We've got a growing membership base all over Australia, and particularly in the regions, which I'm really happy to see. And manufacturing is really going well across Australia. We've got members ringing us and saying one of their biggest problems is just getting enough staff. So that's a good problem to have. Have a look at Manufacturing Academy. You'll see plenty of business leaders there, including Susan, sharing their journey about what it means to be an advanced manufacturer in Australia today. The COVID-19 Manufacturers Response Register continues to be a great platform. So if you're in need of medical PPE, or perhaps you're a manufacturer of those goods, again, completely free to register on that site and access new markets for your needs. So I encourage you all to do that. That's been the 10 ways to succeed in manufacturing. What a 10 weeks of talking with some key people all over Australia, real world examples of how companies are growing in Australia today, using a range of skills and opportunities that we've been able to use and facilitate through our research by talking to you, and being able to then publish that for every manufacturer to access. And I think at the end of the day, we're really bolstering Australia's position as a manufacturer and looking at our manufacturing capability. So I'm glad you could all join us. Again, feel free to reach out at any time to my colleagues and I at AMGC, and we look forward to supporting you. Thanks for joining us all.